ऑन करके सो जाते हैं तो बोलते हैं
एक गिलास पानी दे दीजिएगा मुझे, एक गिलास पानी। Good morning, students. Today we will discuss the Enteropatriciae. I hope you are getting something out of your fall revision classes, which we are conducting nowadays for you. Once you will be back, we will again have interactive sessions, but along with that, we will be having evaluations, different tests for you, so that you can know where you stand, what is the basic level you have got from your previous classes, which were online given to you. Enteropatriciae are basically the gram-negative bacteria which are present inside the gut, and they have some specific qualities and classification points which make them combine in one group, which is named as Enterobacteriaceae, like those bacteria which are present in your enteric system. Gram-negative bacteria are of different classification or shapes, on basis of shapes. These are diplococci, like meningitidis, both gonorrhea and meningitid, Neisseria. Then Coccobacilli, which are H influenza, uh, Bordetella pertussis, Pasteurella, Brucello, and Frankulis. These are Coccobacilli. Then bacilli, which are only the rods. These can be divided as lactose fermenters or non-lactose fermenters. Those who are lactose fermented are E. coli, Klebsiella, and Enterobacter, Citrobacter, or Serratia. Those who are not are Pseudomonas and Shigella, Salmonella, Proteus, and Yersinia. You can further divide them according to their fast growth or slow growing. The fast growing or fast lactose fermenters are E. coli, Klebsiella, and Enterobacter. The slow lactose fermenters are Citrobacter and Serratia. The oxidase positive are those which are positive oxidase are Pseudomonas, and the negative one are Pseudomonas, Salmonella, Shigella, Proteus, and Yersinia. Now these can further be divided as H2S producers or non-H2S producers. So these are Salmonella and Proteus, which are H2S production is there, while in the non-H2S producers, these are Shigella and Yersinia. The fourth shape is Coccobacilli. Coccobacilli, these are oxidase positive, all three of them, and they are further divided based on their growth in alkaline media or their growth in a specific degree centigrade and their urea production. H. pylori is urea positive, while Vibria only grows in the alkaline medium, not in the basic one or neutral one, and the growth in the 42 degree centigrade is Phylobacterium jejuni. This is also another diagram, a very good picture in order to differentiate between the different parts of it. Into different parts of it, and this is also further classification in which you can tell that which bacteria is of which type. And these further divided into cocci, which we discussed before. Neisseria are the cocci-shaped gram-negative bacteria, while the all bacilli are aerobes or anaerobes, or applicate anaerobes or facultative anaerobes like all the Enterobacteriaceae and obligate anaerobes. Now, what are the characters sketch of Enterobacter? These can be all the Enterobacteria are basically rods, and these are motile or non-motile. The motile is further divided into non-capsulated or capsulated. All the motile are non-capsulated. The non-motile are capsulated or capsulated. Non-capsulated or capsulated. The capsulated one includes Klebsiella and Shigella, while the non-capsulated includes uh, Proteus, Salmonella, E. coli, Enterobacter, Citrobacter, and Serratia. What are the basic qualities or characteristics of Enterobacteriaceae? Gram-negative rods are basically, these all are gram-negative rods, basically, primarily in the colon of the urine. Human and other animals is the basic home for them. They are part of normal flora for animals as well as humans, colon, and majority are facultative anaerobes in the large intestine. In my previous lectures, I have told you that what is the difference between facultative anaerobe and a plain anaerobe. An obligate anaerobe is one who needs carbon dioxide for their survival and growth, unless until they will be not be growing. While an facultative anaerobe is that anaerobe which can be either living with oxygen until it is present or it is provided to that organism. Otherwise, it will survive on minimum levels of oxygen like 5% along with the carbon dioxide. So they can switch their oxygen taking ceremony or oxygen energy generating system to aerobic to anaerobic level. That's why it's called facultative. It is very easily turned over from one system to another one. Common features are that they are facultative anaerobes. They ferment glucose. All of them ferment glucose. None of have cytochrome oxidase, so they are oxidase negative, all of them. They reduces nitrates to nitrites as a part of their energy generating system and easily grow on simple and ordinary media like non-motile and can be motile and non-motile. They can easily grow on simple media like like simple blood agar, like simple nutrient agar, even in peptone water. The chart is from your own book, and these are the major pathogens from the Enterobacteriaceae, which are important in humans and human microbiology. And these are Escherichia coli, which usually represented with the urinary tract infection and the traveler diarrhea and urinary meningitis. The second one is Shigella, which causes dysentery. What is dysentery and what is diarrhea? You have to differentiate between both of them. Dysentery is bloody diarrhea, which contains blood in it, while the diarrhea, simple diarrhea, is the loosening of your fecal material. There is no shape in that. Salmonella is typhoid fever and enterocolitis, while Klebsiella causes pneumonia and UTI infections. Enterobacter also present with the pneumonia and UTI infections. Serratia also produced with the same. So at many occasions, Klebsiella, Enterobacter, and Serratia are taken up in the common major group. Proteus for UTI infections and Yersinia for plague and enterocolitis, along with the mesenteritis in some cases. So this is also very important. Now, what is the importance of this one is that the most important is E. coli as it is the first one. It is very important as E. coli is very very common in the travelers area, which is every second traveler can have. Then in neonatal meningitis, E. coli is very common, and in the UTI, everyday community acquired UTI infections, along with the hospital acquired UTI infections, E. coli is one of the most commonly occurring. How they did do endopathogenesis, containing endotoxins in their cell walls, and several exotoxins are produced. E. coli and Vibrio cholerae secrete exotoxins and called as enterotoxins. Cell may have cell wall antigens like flagellate proteins in the capsular or polysaccharide antigens in the heavily capsulated organism such as Klebsiella. How you diagnose the lab? It is an operator on the media. And first of all, you have to take the complete history. Then the patient will come with the infection-related symptom or specimen for blood inoculation. Then blood plate you can easily grow them, and on mechanical for differentiating lactose fermenter into the non-lactose fermenters. Eosin, method, and blue agar, and the differentiability of these non-lactose media is based on lactose fermentation. On the media, the lactose fermenters are Salmonella and Shigella, and they form colorless colonies, whereas the lactose fermenters, like E. coli, forms the colored colonies. If you see a brief classification same like that one, like electrosomatous, either they are or they are not. So if they are electrosomatous, you will consider Ecolite, Klebsiella, and Thervector. But if they are not, then you have to consider Pseudomonas, Lamellar, Shigella, Proteus, and Serratia. TSI is very important test, as I told you before in biochemistry, just as well as in your lectures, that TSI is basically the slant which differentiates the T on their ability to ferment glucose, lactose, or sucrose, and on their ability to produce reduced sulfur to the hydrogen sulfide. The composition of the TSIs, the composition of the TSI is glucose, that is 0.1%, lactose, sucrose, and the ferrous sulfate and peptone. This is an interactive alternative energy source that is fermentable. So what they do is sulfite convert into the ferrous sulfide, and that gives the blackening of the sulfur presence. If there is only glucose, what it will do is it will ferment the bottom of the slant, but that will turn into yellow. However, there is not enough glucose in the medium to turn the top slant into the yellow. When the glucose is used up peptone, this is present in the medium and is utilized aerobically, forming an alkaline product. So you have to consider both the results, whether the media is changed or not. First question. The second one, if it is turning into an alkaline or acidic form. If it is acidic, that means it is fermenting that glucose. If it is not, it is peptone. Then if the glucose and the lactose and the glucose or sucrose are fermented, the entire slant will be yellow. And if the gas is produced, there will be a gap in the media, there will be uplifting of the media, or there will be the breakage of the media. And for hydrogen sulfide, blackening will be there. You can see this slide. We have seen this slide many times. And in this slide, you can see how it is that which one is having gas production, which one is having this crack or these bubbles. Alright? Or there are other liftings like this one. Then if the media is nothing, it will be same as orange as before. If it is alkaline, it will become pink, reddish pink. And if it is acidic, that means alcoholic acidic conversion, that is because of the concentration of lactose fermentation or the glucose fermentation. If the whole plant is yellow, that means it is for consuming all three types of sugars. That is your sucrose, glucose, and lactose. And there is blackening like this one. This is H2S production positive. This is a chart in which you have seen that if there is the slant, but and gas and H or four tests are positive except H2S, then it can be E. coli, Thervector, or Klebsiella. If alkaline acid is there, slant is there, but the acid is acid, then it's Shigella or Serratia. If H2S is production is there, Salmonella and Proteus. If both are alkaline, Pseudomonas. Now this was all about the Enterobacteriaceae. I would like to ask you a question. Name any two important or common features of Enterobacteriaceae. I will give you 3 minutes for this before continuing with the next topic. What are the any 2 or 3 important common characteristics of Enterobacteriaceae? Give any 2 then. What are the 2 common characteristics of Enterobacteriaceae? Yes, you can give any two of them. Give me as simple as can, but you should know that this character should be of all interrogation. Alright, give me any two of them. What are two different categories of interrogation? What are the two different characteristics common one in for the all the interrogation? It is good if you mark your own attendance, not the other one on their behalf. Alright, keep on answering the question that what are the two different, two common, any two of common characteristics of interrogation in the group. While we will continue with the next topic, and at the end we will discuss it further if you have any queries or questions about it. E. coli, as I told you, is very important. Whenever we are talking about gram-negative bacteria, E. coli is the one which will be discussed and asked further in your CQ, in your MCQs, in your Viva questions, in all type of topics. If you are talking about exams. Okay, this is a common characteristic picture of an E. coli. It has DNA, cytoplasm, and membrane, some flagellas, and it's a long rod. The most common cause of urinary tract infections, and it is a gram-negative rod, sepsis, and neonatal meningitis, traveler's diarrhea, or watery diarrhea. Some strains of E. coli are enterohemorrhagic, and they can cause bloody diarrhea. Antigens most abundant at facultative anaerobe in the colon and feces. Then E. coli ferments lactose, a property that distinguishes it from the two major intestinal pathogens like Salmonella and Shigella, because both of them are also very toxic and for the intestinal pathogenesis. But they both are non-lactose fermenters, while the E. coli is a lactose ferment. It has three important antigens like OH antigen and K antigen. O is a cellular antigen, while H is a flagellar, and K is a capsular antigen. How it is transmitted? It is transmitted. It is a reservoir in humans and animals, and UTI infections, patient hormones colony flora that colonizes urogenital area. Neonatal meningitis is the mother birth canal which is giving infection to the next generation. Traveler's diarrhea is acquired by ingestion of contaminated water or food, and then main reservoir of enterogenic hemorrhagic E. coli is O157. This is very important for MCQ as well. And the organism is acquired by undercooked meat. The spinal tract infections, adherence of the organism to the cells of the jejunum in ileum by means of the pili that protrude the form the bacterial surface. The bacteria synthesizes enterotoxins that act in the enteric tract, which acts on the cells of the jejunum and ileum to cause diarrhea. Type of diarrhea causing the E. coli. Enterotoxigenic ETCC strain, enteropathogenic strain, enterohemorrhagic strain, enteroinvasive strain, and enteroaggravating strain. You should know over 5 of these enterotoxin types of diarrhea because they ask in past papers of the prof, and it's a very frequently asked question which is usually asked with the passage of time. But again and again it is asked. Enterotoxin is basically is a heat labile toxin. Heat labile toxin means that when the variability is very low in the heat, high temperature. ATP ribosylation to the G protein is done by this, then stimulates the adenine cyclase. It increases intracellular cyclic adenosine AMP, and which stimulates the cyclic AMP, and which results in the transporters to export ions which causes the outpouring of the fluid from the cells into the extracellular spaces. And this results in the pouring out calcium and chloride along with the fluid in the enterocytes in the lumen of the gut, and that results into the watery diarrhea. The other enterotoxins are low weight, molecular weight, they are heat stable toxins, they are not they are resistant to the heat. It stimulates the guanylate cyclase. Enteroinvasive. These causes inflammation of the colonic mucosa by invasion, and the bloody diarrhea is there. So neutrophils will be present in the stool along with the RBCs. This type of enterohemorrhagic strain is very toxic and very important because it's very toxic and very dangerous for humans. This causes bloody diarrhea by producing exotoxins called as virotoxin. The Shiga-like toxins very similar to those produced by the Shigella bacteria, and the virotoxin acts by removing an adenine from large ribosomal RNA, and therefore stop synthesis of protein. Outbreak of the diarrhea, bloody diarrhea, following the ingestion of the undercooked hamburger, often at the fast food restaurants. So hamburger undercooked and having bloody diarrhea are the main characteristics. Hemolytic uremic syndrome. This is very important, and this is treated with your hemolytic strain, and it occurs when the virotoxin enters the bloodstream. It occurs because there are receptors for virotoxins on the surface of the endothelium of the small blood vessels and on the kidney epithelium. That result into the infection. Death of the endothelial cells of the small blood vessels in microangiopathic hemolytic anemias. Red cells passing through the damaged area become grossly distorted. So they are called schistocytes, and then lysis occur. This lysis lead to the thrombocytopenia as well, and the death of the kidney epithelial cells lead to acute renal failure, and the patient cannot revive himself or herself from the disease at the moment. Systemic infections caused by the enterotoxin is due to endotoxins produced by E. coli, gram-negative sepsis such as fever, hypertension, and DIC. That resulted to the death. That urinary tract infections, certain host serotypes of the E. coli preferentially cause urinary tract infections, and which result in UTI. How you diagnose the case of E. coli? On the blood agar plate gives a very normal colonies, then on EBM or by Conkey, which is characteristic for the E. coli as they produce the fermenters, and the colonies have a characteristic green sheen. It produces indole from tryptophan. It decarboxylates lysine. It uses acetate as its only source of carbon, and it is motile. So all these characteristics give a green sheen appearance on the E. coli EMB plate. If you see this one, this is the E. coli growth on blood agar. Well, this is a growth of pink color colonies on the meconium. How you treat? The treatment of low unit tract infections is trimethoprim penicillin, methoxone, or any oral medicine, then sepsis is treated by parenteral antibiotics like third generation cephalosporins and aminoglycosides. If it be given in the combination, it will having a good effect, such as gentamicin. Unital meningitis is ampicillin and cefotaxime is given. This was all about the Enterobacteriaceae. I would like you to ask any questions if you have before I start with the next topic. If you have any question, you can ask. Any one of you? All right, for your intermediate attendance, the question is, which strain of the E. coli is called as hemolytic strain of E. coli? Which strain of E. coli is known as hemolytic strain of E. coli? You have to mention the name of the strain. Which strain of the E. coli is which strain of the E. coli is known to be the hemolytic strain of E. coli? Which strain of the E. coli is known to be the hemolytic strain? वही बोल Klebsiella. I hope you have all given the answer of my question, which is the allergic strain of E. coli. Excuse me. Keep on giving your answers, those who have not given. The next group which we discussed today will So the next topic which we will discuss today will be the group of Klebsiella, Enterobacter, and Serratia. These are the pathogens which are usually opportunistic. Normally, they don't cause the disease, but they cause nosocomial infections whenever the patient is having low immunity or they are in hospital. They causes pneumonia and UTIs. Pneumonia is an important respiratory pathogen outside the hospital as well. They causes large intestine and they are present in the large intestines and they are present in the soil and water. Klebsiella is basically pneumonia produces a large number of embryoi that are involved in the adherence of the organism into the host. You all know. They are gram-negative rods. They are aerobes, facultative anaerobes. They are non-motile. They are large capsular. Thick capsule is there. They are lactose fermenters. They are oxidase negative and they ferment glucose with the acid production. If you see they are small short rods, small chubby rods, and you can easily differentiate them from the other rods of the gut. Four subspecialties are very important: Klebsiella pneumoniae, aerogenes, and Osei, and rhinosclerosis. They cause disease in reference. The pneumonia is the most frequently causes infectious agent, and it produces predisposing conditions such as advanced age, chronic respiratory disease, diabetes, and alcoholism. Enterobacter and Serratia are related to the IV procedures and respiratory incubation and urinary tract manipulation. Serratia also causes endocarditis times. UTI infections are basically the clinical findings in the pneumonia, and these are usually clinical entities, but bacteremia and secondary spread of the other diseases as meningitis occur. Klebsiella produces thick bloody sputum, it's also called as current jelly sputum, and can progress to necrosis or abscess formation. Klebsiella ozane is associated with the atrophic rhinitis, and Klebsiella rhinoscleromatosis is causes a destructive rhinoma of the nose and pharynx. Depending on the site where the infection is there, specimen will be taken. If it is a UTI, you will take the urine. If it's a bone infection, you will take the pus. If it is pneumonia, sputum will come for you. And if there is any other tissue which is infected, you can take the tissue as well. On the blood plate, it will appear like this. These are thick colonies with lots of mucus in it. This is because of thick mucoid appearance because of the thick capsule in it, the bacteria. This is a summary of biochemicals of these bacteria. You see, Klebsiella and Enterobacter and both have same findings when we are talking about the tech biochemical tests. Only the difference which you differentiate Klebsiella from Enterobacter is that the Klebsiella is non-motile, while Enterobacter is a motile. On TSI, you can see how it appears. Fifth one is the Citrobacter. You can see produces H2S, while the Klebsiella don't produce H2S. So this is the second point which can differentiate into it. I will ask you in the end what points I have given. How you differentiate between Citrobacter and Klebsiella? Number one, they are motile, the Citrobacter ones, while the Klebsiella is a non-motile one. Number two, the Klebsiella is not non-H2S producer, while the Citrobacter it is. If you see the colonies, this type of colony will appear. This is called string test. So if you take out the colony, touch the colony with the while loop and you hold it upside, there is a string formed because of the thick mucus. So you can see the thickness by that string test method. Some strains are Klebsiella MDR, that is multi-drug resistance. So you have to avoid them. Cephalosporins and Rhinogravus together are best for the treatment of Klebsiella infections. So this is all for the Klebsiella. Now you have to, I will ask you some questions and then we will go on to the next presentation. Okay. Mahira, if you are there, can you listen me? Hello? As it is a revision class, you have to answer or you have to question. So you can tell me what are the two different characteristics of Klebsiella which differentiate it from Enterobacter. Mahira, are you there? Jeev, my question is, what are the characteristics, two characteristics of Klebsiella which differentiate it from the other one, the Enterobacter? I think you guys have understood so much that you are unable to answer even a single question. This is not a good thing. Alright, if you people are not interested in answering or questioning anything, we can go to the next topic and then I will be having this. Most probably you will be having a test on entering the college so that you should know where you are standing for all these topics which we have already done in revisions. This chart is very important and you should all know about it. Right, I will go with the next topic because you don't have any question for that. So I will switch to the next topic again.